tribute. We ought to do an episode on the Red Green Show.
Recording in progress.
See if anyone out there has heard of the Red Green Show. This is a hangover from our discussion of Graham Greene and his role in Echo. Go ahead and hit us up on the socials. Anyway, that's how I'm starting the episode about the Marvels. So Sharon Blady and Dwight Hurst here to host for y'all today. We're going to be talking about the MCU film, The Marvels. Or is it just Marvels? Now I can't remember. Now
it's The Marvels, and I think we're recording the day before it goes onto Disney Plus and the other streaming services, moving from theater to home viewing.
Aha, there we go. It is The Marvels. You're right. So yeah, everybody out there know that as you see this. So this is an interesting one to talk about. We'll dive into some of the issues they do cover. I will say, first of all, this is one that I came into. I was really excited for this one to come out, and I found that my excitement was mostly justified. I would say, just from my own perspective as a viewer, I felt that it didn't quite nail the third act as much as I wished it had from the emotional stuff for me. However, I thought it was awesome. Throughout. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Would watch it
and I can see where, and I think a lot of it too, for me, in terms of expectations is, I hate to say it, but we've got enough toxic fans out there that I always get a little twitchy about what gets said in advance and what that, what people, and it's just that whole, again, we've talked about this before, like, don't yuck somebody else's yum kind of thing. And that this was just the poster child for being attacked in some respects.
Oh, and you knew, right?
It's like we've got 3 female leads.
Yeah.
We've got a female, writing, directing staff. It was like all the stuff to double down on. And then, and then we can get into the whole issue of, what's the politics or what's the, image left by the fact that, that we're seeing women getting either shorter films or, again, like Black Widow in terms of like the lack of support, the only non-theater release and all these other kinds of things. What do you read into that? And what do you take as, in this case, the director was just like, she actively said she wanted a shorter movie because when you stop and think about it, the movies in the MCU kept growing and growing to the point that I was like, okay, when do we get the the intermission bathroom break?
Oh,
and,
yes.
I will always hang around for 5 more minutes of, Thor or whoever else, give me more T'Challa at the drop of a hat and any of these characters. But by God, like her wanting to do something tighter and in a sense, faster editing as opposed to epic, kinds of long shots and things like that. It made sense.
And not every movie.
It still, it still can make you a little twitchy.
Yeah, not every movie needs to be 3+ hours for crying out loud. There is something to be said for the art form of movies being about telling a story, within, if you can tell a story within, seriously, 90 to 120 minutes, that's very impressive. If it's like, not to say that there's not a lot of good movies out there that are 3 hours that I like and all that, but yeah, exactly.
The whole world doesn't need Snyder cuts, but
yes. Although that seems to be his jam now. He came out saying that he can't wait to release the Snyder cut of the movie he just made. By the way, I don't know if anybody.
Yeah. No, you see, and that's one of those
stuff.
Like, then do a television series.
That's a
give
good,
it 6, 8, or 12 episodes.
Although you can get 2 sales, for the price of 1 movie. Anyway, not to get lost in the Snyderverse stuff, but no, you're absolutely right. I think that having, and it's good to know that was a directorial choice as well. And I think, as we've touched on before, one of the things that is, once again, easy to miss for some of us with an entitlement, right? We can go, oh, wow, representation, because what do we look at? The cast list. But what should we look at? The writers and director list, right? That's where the representation also happens. That's very important. So either way, but I will say that tying together like what is kind of the psychological emphasis of this movie, there's a lot of things that I think are very interesting. To me, this is also Kamala Khan's movie as far as that goes. I think she's the star of the whole thing to me, is just the performance, the performance that Iman Vellani brings.
There's definitely, and the fact that her family's in it too, I have to say,
awesome.
I love.
Yes.
There's a whole other.
That to me was the real. I know that they went for some there, and there. I'm not gonna trash on anyone's reactions to this, but the Monica Rambeau being willing to sacrifice herself and everything, that was like an emotional punch they were going for. For me, the family relationship of the Khan family was much more emotionally resonant. Actually, I felt like they really nailed that. At least for me, that
well,
was what I got out of it.
and I think that's the thing is that it fulfilled and also challenged a lot of again, assumptions or stereotypes that we have around whether different characters. So, I mean, first of all, again, you had 3 female superhero leads. You had the villain was a female. And again, I had some of my own issues around that because it was the whole, okay, well, it's after all of these years where you have a male lead and a male villain, okay, that's one thing. Okay, now we're starting to mix up the cast, but is it, can female heroes only fight another female? Is that representation, or is that just turning this into, further marginalized in a cat fight? That kind of, so which way is it going? What are the choices? But I do think all of the characters were done well. I did love, as you said, that, they made this, Kamala's movie in a sense, but I think that was cool in that Captain Marvel, I think that's the other part. And I even think about the first movie where, again, a lot of the things, but then done differently. And so this was that opportunity, and that you got to see her in these different relationships. And I think the part that I found interesting is that there was a moment where you realize, oh yeah, wait a second. She hasn't, because of, again, her powers, hasn't aged. So this is that sort of, there's the 3 stages of life sort of thing. Like she's the elder, so to speak, and we might not necessarily think of her that way. There's her niece. And then here's the young, fresh-eyed, oh my, like again, she's starstruck,
a minty protagonist who is
and then and in a sense still needing her family, which again, what I thought was interesting about that, because we go back to how many superhero things are about this person as the lone person. They've been orphaned, they've been this, they've been that. No, you've got her mother with like, you're bringing her home right now. She is not allowed to do this. Or, so your friend showed up and was in the living room and da-da-da-da-da. And what are you doing?
Can I say too?
And you just watch, because there's this whole thing where it's like, what have you been keeping from us? Who are you hanging out with?
Yes.
And why are they showing up in our house? And it's like, what do you mean they were here? Oh my God. Like how dare you meet them before I get to them? And like, you could just tell that she's like, I could not have been in on this, because trust me, if I met Captain Marvel, oh my God, I'd be bouncing around the walls. You would know about it. I could not hide that secret.
And one of my favorite Khan family moments is when supervillains, low-key henchmen level, let's be honest, but powerful henchmen, supervillains show up in their house and they just start kicking ass. They just start, I'm going to hit him with a broom. I don't care. And, obviously need to be rescued out of that kind of thing, but it kind of goes... I also like that even though the mom is this worried mom, they do revisit the same thing they did in the Miss Marvel show, which is ultimately her response is, I'm proud of you. I know you need to do this and you have the power to do it. So get out there and do it. That there's this idea. And I think that goes a bit deeper into the parent-child relationship than historically these kinds of things were always like, oh, mom and dad don't get it. They're weighing us down. And I think you see this trend to say, let's actually humanize all the characters more. You see this in Turning Red is very good at this, I find. And, there's other where it's like, there can be a trope there. So they're kind of taking what works with that trope, what's funny and useful, but then deepening the relationship. And that reminds me.
Well, and that healthiness of, if I've done a good job, I've done my best raising you. I'm not pretending to be perfect. Yes, I'm going to lean into obviously some of the overprotectedness because, oh my God, my daughter's in a spaceship, bajillion miles away. Yeah, I'd be a little twitchy. But again, coming around to what? I know I've done the best that I can. I've seen that you are trustworthy, responsible, this and that. And I can't let my discomfort get in the way of understanding that you can be trusted with this, and that this is where, I've given you the roots, here are the wings.
Yes.
Take your wings, go with it.
I felt like, and speaking of kind of deepening and humanizing people, one of the things that this movie really does is it deepens this concept of you should never meet your heroes, because you do see, but I think one of the things about that trope that can be annoying is it's always the same. You meet your hero, they suck. Or you meet your hero, they kind of suck, but they don't really because they're hero. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of this where Miss Marvel, almost right out the gate, they go to this planet and Captain Marvel's making this hard decision right away of, well, we'll save who we can. And she's like, these people are going to die though. And so she has to confront this. And then ultimately also we discover that Captain Marvel is this like demigod slash vengeful god.
Yeah, she's seen as the anti-hero in Hala. Yeah,
right. And depending, and even her the other planet. But by the way, one of the things I like about this movie is they weren't afraid to just go full craziness in some areas. Like, here's a planet that communicates with song. We're going to transport people inside of aliens' stomachs. Anyway, I thought that was super fun. Yeah, but the idea that getting to know the sort of the humanity, right? The humanity of this process of saying, and we see it on Kamala's reactions of like getting to know, but she gets to know, and next thing you know, she's providing the sort of mentoring about certain emotional things that that Carol never really has confronted, particularly in her post-amnesia life, right? She's never had like the family. Obviously, she did before that, and so anyway, I just thought that was interesting to see that flip where she's mentoring her in some ways of maybe emotional intelligence, and then she's also kind of coming to terms in a more human way about like, oh wow, you're not perfect. But at the same time, the little fangirl thing never goes away, which
the fangirl stuff never goes away. I mean, and I think that even that fangirl stuff, I love how at the beginning where you have the whole thing about them, switching locations and what's happened with the ruptures, and just that, watching her go from like, again, the perfectly logical blood curdling screams of I'm spinning around in space to, oh my God, Nick Fury, is this an Avenger cast? Like, just
that's the humanity too. I really
and he's just like, who are you? What are you?
Yeah.
Where did Monica go? And so that dynamic, and then how they end up again. And it like, I think that was the other part, like especially when I rewatched it, was just this idea of, yeah, there she is with her hero, and her hero is telling her not to do stuff. But then at the same time, it's a case of, because we have to because it's the three of us that keep switching. And if we're going to keep switching, let's just keep it to the two of us. That way it's a straight switch. And they might still not, shall we say, know each other's things and everything, but it's slightly less chaotic. And that there's a certain amount of things they can do without their powers. And so it was that idea of like the proverbial, I hate to say it, but you're the kid and you're the third wheel right now. And how much of that is a teenager response to things? Yeah. Where on one, but again, she doesn't have that time to explain, no, this is not about we're sidelining you because we don't think you're old enough or you're this or you're that. This is the best way that I can think of doing things right now. And and that whole, it doesn't look great on paper. I get it. But this is I have the choice of saving 25% of the people or trying to save everybody and we all die. Pick one. And yes, I need you to do this other task that I get it. It's not fun to be the person that has to go mow the lawn before company comes over for the yard party. I get that you want to be in the kitchen or maybe, you know what? But I need you to mow the lawn and do the raking so that we can do all these other things. It sucks. I get it. But, so it was kind of like, in a way, she had to take on a mom role. And then there's the whole dancing around, well, what do I do with Monica? Because I feel like, we got some abandonment issues, but I love when they have these different conversations where, it's the whole, I didn't want to come back because I had to I broke something. I have to fix it. I didn't want to tell you I was the I become the villain someplace else. And I didn't want you. And it's like again, one of those, like, she's like, would I have known that? Like, it's not like this is, what you did on Hala is not showing up on the 6 o'clock news. Where I would be like sitting down and watching TV going, oh my God, there's my auntie. And she's like, evil on this other planet a bajillion miles away.
Right. No, and I do feel like
My
one of
eye.
the things Marvel's tried to do in its projects that is interesting, and to be honest, if you're a comics reader, comics, always try to visit this too. One of the most interesting, let's say, weaknesses is the fallout that you can't avoid if you're a superhero, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have your, excuse me, Superman's biggest weakness that's most interesting isn't kryptonite or a red sun. It's that he can't save everybody, right?
Yeah.
But yet he feels like he should be able to because he's so powerful that and to be sort of impotent in that way, and so you get into the after effects of the blip, and you get into just basically all the stuff like that. And I love the way that it's obviously probably written this way and stuff too, but the way that Vellani, when she's playing Kamala Khan, she nails what I think is missing in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi types of stories, which is a real reaction. Like she sees, the Flurgan eat the bad guys, and she's not like awesome, let's roll with this. She goes, oh no, that was horrifying. It's like
it's freaking cat.
Worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Well, and yeah, how she responds to things. Well, and again, even that whole thing where there's the flipping back and forth, and then what do you mean Captain Marvel was here? Like, yeah, there's an intensity that she truly captures. Like, I would say there's something there that she's us in a way. Like she represents, and I think that's what I've loved about certain characters, and she's definitely the one that's sort of to the nth degree where it's like, this is real people. Like this is like the audience is like, you get to, in a sense, it's if I was suddenly found myself in this is how I would be reacting to. If I suddenly found out this is what I would be doing.
And
because for some reason we had Spider-Man and we had Peter Parker with the, let me have an accident while I try to figure out how to swing from this or jump from this. And wow, that concrete hurt. Or, gravity still works even if I have webs.
Or getting that reaction from Sam in Civil War where he's like, I don't know how many fights you've been in, but this is a lot of talking for a fight. Just things like that where there's the innocence. And you see that with her too, where she's like, we're a team, and it's like, whereas oftentimes in stories like this, there's a pressure to be cool, right? And to have a character that could be like, well, no, I'm a teenager, I wouldn't be cool in this setting.
And the fact that, in a sense, they're all not cool in their own way, but they are cool. Like, so the fact that, again, she's running around and she's trying to give, Monica a name because Monica needs a code name. And, or even just the whole, like, there's a file on me. And, well, if this is top secret, why is it clear? That's not really secure. Is this an iPad? Like, just like, again, that's what you deal with when, again, I think a lot of us as parents are like, oh my God, it's I got the toddler, but why? And so that idea that she's trying to come up with a name because she needs a name, but even when they're learning their powers and learning how to, they go from here's the chaotic where anytime one of us tries to do a thing, something happens and we're all kind of fumbling. And yes, we eventually, it all gets sorted out. And we'll have the conversation, have the awkward introductions in the trashed con living room. Yes. and what's the cat going to either ingest or spit out next? And then take it to okay, well, if we're going to do this, how does it work? And then you see them and it's everything from like the juggling the balls, but then you see them doing hopscotch and watching how, and so like the hopscotch thing is like, oh my God, there's the childhood thing. And there's the girls bonding. There's the, that's a childhood thing. And one of the things that I love that's brilliant about that analogy is, first of all, when you're doing that kind of thing, it's still when to jump in and just waiting for her and how all the, not even with the switching, but just when do I time myself to jump into between the skipping ropes as it goes? And you watch the other two with, more confidence go in there and do it. But, Kamala is kind of like a little bit more hesitant, and then eventually she gets it, and then they're able to do that. And so to me, that was like a really cool thing. And especially, again, when you think about, the kind of childhoods that each of them has had for their own different reasons, there's that, in a sense, sort of like okay, I get to embrace my inner child, so to speak, make some childhood memories that I maybe didn't get otherwise, do team building, as well as it's not your standard war room, got to learn how to use my superpowers. We can actually, it leans into some of that irreverence that I think we find with the Captain Marvel stuff, where it's we could go full, X-Men war room, but no, we're up, because we're up in a spaceship and we can do whatever. No, we're going to skip. We're going to do some other stuff that's actually cool.
Yeah, that was a fascinating thing to me. It in a way, it reminded me of No Way Home when he keys into the other two Spider-Men and is like, we got to work as a team. I've been in a team. You've been in a team. We don't have time to talk about that. All that. The difference in this one, of course, is and. Action movies and super movies are famous for like very training montages being like, a couple days of this and I'm an expert. But they at least have some practice time. But the interesting thing is this kind of trying to collaborate when you've got these different perspectives. You've got, and one of the great things about Kamala Khan, I keep coming back to her, is that she's someone who's grown up with there is an MCU that exists within the MCU. There is fandom and movies and clips and videos and all these things and autobiographies and interviews with the heroes and all that. And so she's one of the few like superhero characters who actively wanted to be a superhero, then became one, right? In a world in which
it was a dream come true, as opposed to, what do you mean I got bit by a thing or zapped by a thing?
And so then you've got the other ones that I feel like it's more kind of a sense of duty. They're both military, at least, both military minded, explorer minded, kind of people who have kind of, we have to do this, sort of.
Here's the mission.
Here's the mission, right? And putting ourselves in that way and having, and you could say there's a lot of things that go back there, having that youth perspective. And as you put it, it's kind of like, okay, we have the more mature perspective. We have probably a little more powerful powers, especially with Carol Danvers. So we're going to take the lead and do this. But you see where time and time again woven into this, and I don't think they overdo this the way it sometimes can be tropey once again, but she does bring something to the table, right? She brings like insights, and when she's sort of allowed and she applies her powers and things, she brings something. And also there's just the excitement of that too. And I think that's contained very well in what you're referencing, which is we're using play, right? We're using play to kind of work through this, to train and to get in sync with each other. And that part's quite interesting.
And we could even go into the science around the whole idea that, learning a lesson, if you can learn, kids learn faster through play than they do through, when you teach life skills and whatever. And I think a lot more of us would probably do well to, again, I get everything can't be gamified into a video game, but there's a lot of things that we could do where it's just like, again, take the sticks out of our collective tookuses and,
look at Bluey.
And relax a little bit. I think even how she stood up for herself with the quantum bands. And it was the whole, where did you get that? My grandma, she mailed it to me. I'm more flippin' entitled to this than you. If anything, you've got my grandma's bangle. Not that you dug something up on a planet. This is mine. This is family legacy. So she even brings that sense of again, the ownership of her powers. Like you say, it's, she's happy to be there. She knows where it comes from. Again, it might not be the full larger history, but this is my legacy. This is who I am. And that she sees it as these bangles traveled literally across time and space to get to her, as opposed to this person on a quest. And I think that was the other part too, that when you look at Dar-Ben and it's so many of these other anti-heroes that we've talked about or villains, it's this whole something happened and there was a plot twist and whatever, and that, that harm. And again, and even the role that Carol plays in that, right? Where she's got this sense of, and again, fits so perfectly when we think about her own origin story and what Jan Rog beat into her, and just that whole larger gaslighting system that was going on there, where it was I went in and I tried to, do this thing. I thought I would, fix it this way. Oops. Well, we all have the big whoopsies, as you usually, talked about. She had a pretty big whoopsie, but at the same time, it was one of those, yes, it was an unintended consequence. Yes, you can want to repair it. But the way she's internalized the blame and the shame is still that remnant of, again, for whatever growth, healing, whatever. oh, holy flippin' trigger that still, I'm healed with this, I'm healed with that. Oh, geez, over here, all the stuff. I tried to fix the thing and I broke the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now I feel responsible. But at the same time, she problem solves and again, that's where, Kamala comes into well, what are they looking for? Oh, okay, well, it's water, it's this, it's that. And so, yeah, she brings something to the table. They all grow. They all, in a sense, deal with their different baggage. And, I have to say, I love too, like what happened between Monica and Carol as well, because it was that reparation. And it was that, I lost my mom. You were the only, you're my only family. And I get that you were trying to pick up somebody else's mess over there and this thing that you feel guilty about. And that some weird shame about stuff that I was never going to know about if you didn't tell me. But I needed you too. And I think that's another thing from a parent child or any kind of, when we have, somebody, whether it's, I would say slightly older than somebody that we see in a role of some sort of caregiving or guardianship or whatever, where it's I get it, you got stuff with work, but you know what? I still need you at my soccer game. I still need
Absolutely.
you to and it's that whole reminder of, nobody's going to sit there, on their deathbed and go, alas, if I only attended one more meeting.
And you do, I think that you do see that once again, as there's this more human weakness that is amplified obviously by the mission of these heroes and things, which is to connect even to just those around them. Right. And we've seen that played out with a lot of these kind of relationship issues. Interestingly enough, here's another thing we could spin off on. Interestingly enough, a lot of times with women, I mean, you've seen it a few times with men as well. I think Hawkeye and his family, and there's some of that in the Eternals with, and a couple others sprinkled out. Here's another little episode we can go. We could dig in, which is that kind of role there too. And for you do see that oftentimes showcased, like Black Widow and her sister. This case, anyway.
But again, you see how it's mostly female leads, where it's mostly female leads that we see family stuff, and that the rare exceptions are, when you get family stuff related to to Sam. Yes, you got it with Hawkeye and with T'Challa. Like those are the only places.
And Tony eventually, I guess. Tony eventually, say,
but even that is still more like, again, that's him in his past and getting into augmented reality stuff to address his baggage.
And it's still about him having to leave. Now he gives his life and all that too, but it is different. Yeah. He doesn't have to stay and nurture, although to be fair, he was a nurturing dad in the clips we saw. In the one interaction with his child that we saw.
Yeah. But exactly, like it was one of those, like, it's great to see that he's got this, but it didn't give us the depth or the the weird day-to-day minutia.
We have to assume that was there instead of getting to see it. Whereas, so it is interesting the way that we do tell the stories. There's still a lot of that, as much as it makes people annoyed that there are female characters at all, that camp. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done in kind of, bringing that more to the forefront.
Well, and I think that's the other part that is, again, as somebody that, you're looking for this balance. And I mean, you said before, we have like the, it's like the checklist for, male toxicity in terms of what triggers them, in terms of, you've got a lead female, or 3 lead females, and you got you got a blonde, you've got a woman of African American ancestry, you've got a Pakistani, so you got your Muslim immigrant, you got it's checked off all the boxes of it's like sure. You're just like waiting for the anyways, so you got that. And I think and it was interesting too, because my son made a comment about Nick Fury. And I said, well, yeah, but stop and think about Nick Fury, because he was like, yeah, this is a different one. And I said, well, yeah, but think about how he was in the other, like in the original Captain Marvel. Also think about, and he hadn't yet watched all of Secret Invasion. And this whole thing where, again, it's the other side of a character. And it's like, he doesn't have to be the weird angry guy that's barking orders or telling somebody
Yeah,
to,
he gets to be funny.
Follow orders, get your head out of your arse, do the thing. It's the more like this is again that other side. And again, chaos has been introduced into his life and that he can, his relationship with Carol is different than it is with anyone else, because in a sense, it happened by accident. Again, she introduced chaos into his life. And then from that, he built these other things. So she is, the true first Avenger and that person. And then he realized, and how I would see it is he realized that once he started herding cats, interestingly, he had to be a little bit more rigid. I even love the fact that they brought in the whole, here's the herding cats, because it is a metaphor for some of the other things that have been going on. And that idea of, again, what is Goose really? Goose is laying golden eggs here. We just don't know it. There's the solution to our problems.
I never thought about this. Goose
and there's this
golden eggs. Dang.
Yeah. And that they're having to round up. And so that this thing that's been freaking everybody out is now turning into the solution. And you get all these, again, it's the element of chaos, but it's still at some level the solution. And then watching, again, the family getting involved. So here's some way that we can help, do things. And in some respects, I'm thinking about the mom, like this is her thing. I'm a mom. I heard cats. And then even when they're all in the thing there and her brother is praying, I said, are you praying? Yeah. Like, you want me to stop? No, like, when it just keep going. Like, I'm all about the science. I'm all about the tech, but I will take whatever things that we might, anything that'll get us a little further over the line, get us home safely. Like, so I think that was the other part, was that I think all Marvel movies have a little bit of tongue in cheek and playfulness, but I think this is where we get to see a little bit more of it. And it might have been a little bit more than some people could handle. And I think it even goes into why some people did not understand about Prince Jan and, again, his planet and people singing and whatever. And I think it sounds really weird. I also think it's maybe why they put in, a Korean actor, because I'm not sure they could have. So yes, on one level, representation, but on another level, I'm not sure they could have, who they would have hired out of the North American acting world.
Interesting.
That would have done that,
There are some interesting things being done. I mean, as we see, musicals are kind of back, as you see with The Color Purple, and which I haven't seen, and Wonka, which, by the way, is pretty awesome. If anyone hasn't seen Wonka, I'd go out and see it. Anyway, but yeah, there is something with music that's being anyone who's watched the first episode with the latest Doctor into the Doctor Who, there's a whole weird musical thing they do in that is way unexpected. So yeah, there are interesting things that are poking up there. And I think it has a certain exuberance. Maybe it has a certain connection or something that people are trying to experiment with, how to put movies how to put music into some of the projects that we don't always see it.
And what I think of is, and it's not the only place it happens, but it's the one place that stood out in my mind, is I think about the Buffy the Vampire series. And at some point you hit X number, it's like you get into a certain, and then you have a musical episode. And it's kind of like we're so far into the MCU. And so you get these things where suddenly it's the blah, blah, blah. And again, how it happens, whether it's something, again, something spell related or magical, or if it's somebody has the dream or whatever, but you have, there's the musical episode. And I think that was the MCU's way of putting it in there. It is in there canonically, even if they did change who the character is. And I think the other part too that folks don't realize is that a lot of Korean actors, because of the way their entertainment system works, first of all, some of them do actually come from the K-pop industry, but you are basically expected to be a triple threat. You have to be able to sing, dance, and act. And so, this, his outfit and everything that they did there, yes, it was over the top, but you know what? It's no weirder than some of the K-pop videos that I've seen. Like those can be their own weird, trippy parallel universes. And
it reminds me of like Bollywood and stuff too, as you're saying that.
Well, and I think they leaned into that. So it's like, it was just over the top. I do love the fact too, then it was the whole speaking versus singing. And so that it's the whole, well, he's talking. Yeah, well, because he's bilingual. Like just that notion of here's a multilingual character. And, what I also loved about it too, was it was kind of playing with and shutting down the trope around how we deal with romantic leads or leads where, is the main character involved in a relationship, and how they get handled with men and how they get handled with women. Yeah. And how a lot of times it's, again, we've talked about Wonder Woman and what happened to Steve and body snatching and whatnot. So she sort of shuts it down, where it's like, this was done. It's literally the proverbial marriage of convenience so that this guy could fulfill his role. But we got to go do these things. And the fact that she even had to, like, I got to wear this weird pillow with like squid looking things, like they totally leaned into, here's all of the weird stuff associated with marriages, obligations, roles that are played, this, that, whatever. The fact that she's suddenly in like a Captain Marvel ball gown, that is just screaming like that it came out of a Disney flick, a Disney, animated thing. Like, how much more Cinderella? I mean, it's a good thing that, Disney, like, they're all tied together, because, from a, copyright
a Disney princess?
Like, you're like, oh my God, nobody else in the world could get away with doing a dress exactly like that without having Disney legally up in their business. But leaned right into there, and that's where the humor came from. So for me, it was one of those, like, you check off your musical box episode, you check off the romantic stuff, whatever. No, I got the hot guy that you're going to see in a whole bunch of other things, and very few people can carry that. Carry off that butterfly headdress. At the same time, he's a fighter, he's this and that, and he does these other things. So, I mean, would I have wanted half an hour of him in that movie? Absolutely. But, there's my fangirling. But at the same time, they put him in there enough that he does what he needs to do for the purpose of this story, especially with it being as short as it is. And then again, tongue in cheek, a lot of fun, over the top, checks the box.
Thank you for listening to the Court Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.